Hey, everybody. Welcome to our very second episode of Age of Geek podcast. I'm Jake.
And I'm Marley.
And we have two special guests with us tonight, two Daredevil experts, and Larry Curtis and Blake Casselman. Larry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And I want to qualify the Daredevil expert. I don't know if that's true, but I've read lots and lots and lots of Daredevil, and it's been a lifelong passion of mine for sure. I'm probably known in other fandoms for like Lord of the Rings, maybe, but Daredevil's actually like my first love and my true love. So I am a journalist by trade. I do a lot of writing. I take some pictures. I've played in the geek press for, 20 years, most of it in Lord of the Rings, probably. I've traveled a bit, been a geek on several continents. I go to conventions, speak at them sometimes. Blake is kind enough to have me there. And I discovered Daredevil on a road trip to Missouri and picked up one of the very first issues that Frank Miller wrote and read it in the car. Changed my life.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you here, Larry. Blake, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for those few people out there who don't know who Blake Casselman is?
Those few people out there who have had the privilege of not knowing who I am. Again, like Larry, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Jake and Marley. And my name is Blake Casselman. I am the director of programming at FanX. I'm also a screenwriter and a film producer. I have a new film that I wrote and produced, a horror film called Limbo that's coming out in the fall. And I also have dabbled somewhat in comic book writing and editing. I have a graphic novel called Devil's Triangle that you can get from Amazon and Comixology. And my love of Daredevil started with I read The Defenders back in the day, and Daredevil would guest star on The Defenders every now and then, and that's where I really became aware of Daredevil. And then, like Larry, I picked up an issue of Daredevil early in the Frank Miller run. Frank wasn't writing it at this time. Roger Sliffer was writing it, and Frank was drawing it. And what drew me to the issue was on the cover it had Daredevil in an alleyway with his billy club held up, ready to fight, and in the background, in the foreground, there was the green fist of the Hulk. And I was like, oh, got to check this out. So I bought that issue and really enjoyed it.
163, by the way.
Yes.
Daredevil 163.
Yeah. Fantastic issue. And I was aware of Frank Miller's art because he had done a run on Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, as one of his first jobs for Marvel. And it was great kind of getting into Daredevil at that point and being able to go along with the great run he did on that series as first artist and then later writer and artist.
Larry, did you have a comment? I feel like you were raising your hand.
I was raising my hand. It's funny that Blake would mention that issue of Daredevil. I honestly think it's maybe the best Hulk story I've ever read. And Hulk is tough to have as a main character because he's so strong and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But that's such a good kind of issue. And I keep waiting for someone to think like that's what we need to get on screen for a Hulk movie, because it is. It actually is.
What is the name of that comic again? I'm gonna write it down in our private chat so I can remember it later.
It's you said it was 163, Larry, Daredevil.
Yeah. It's the original run, the one that started in the 60s, and it's yeah.
Okay.
Marley, this is Daredevil Visionaries Volume 1. It's the Frank Miller run from the beginning. In one trade paperback. Well, there's multiple, but this one has the Hulk issue in it.
Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah. No, I I did not start very early with Daredevil comics, but I've like read 2 of them. And that's Guardian Devil, which I have here. This was recommended to me from by a friend who is really, really into comics too. And I really liked the story. I read it after I had seen the TV series on Netflix for Daredevil. So I kind of already had like that basis, but I really liked this version. And then I just read the Born Again one in preparation for tonight, and I really liked that one. It seemed like, and tell me if I'm wrong, because you guys obviously are more knowledgeable about this, but so the Frank Miller ones are the ones that like the TV show is more based on, right? Yes? No?
There's a lot of Miller influence in the TV show, definitely.
Gotcha. Yeah, it seemed like there were a lot of things that was going on in the comic Born Again that I was like, hey, this seems like if they're going to start with the TV series Born Again, I'm like, I could see some of these plot points happening.
Yeah, in fact, I was super hoping that, you know, before it was Netflix canceled, I was super hoping that season 4 would be an adaptation of the Born Again storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what Frank Miller did, which the TV show really borrowed heavily from, is so the Kingpin was like a Spider-Man villain, really.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank Miller picked him up and brought him into Daredevil and did it so much more effectively. It was like the best Kingpin all of a sudden. And, you know, it was many years before Kingpin was a big Daredevil villain, but then he was. Like, Frank Miller cemented him as this opponent. And so the TV show naturally went to there. He's the right kind of opponent. So just by the virtue of having the Kingpin there, it's, you know, a lot of that kind of Miller influence automatically is there. In fact, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but even some of the Born Again content already kind of bled into the Netflix series for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my introduction to the Kingpin was the Spider-Man comics as well, and he wasn't even considered one of you know, Spider-Man's rogue gallery of bad guys. He wasn't even a foremost one. He was kind of this odd, oversized, you know, wealthy gangster who, you know, Spider-Man called chubby and told a lot of fat jokes to as he fought him.
It's true.
So it was really interesting how when Frank Miller brought the Kingpin into the Daredevil universe, he became a very scary villain in many ways.
Yep. And the Spider-Man animated movie, of course, did use Kingpin, right? But even that version of Kingpin was kind of the more Frank Miller version. Like, not completely, but Frank Miller definitely took him from this, like Blake said, kind of a weird dude to like a real mainstay of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anybody scarier than the Kingpin just because of the connections that he has and the crime organization that he runs. And a lot of that is because of Frank Miller and his work, for sure. So that's the reason we wanted to talk about Born Again. You guys mentioned it, this TV series that Marvel announced. It was interesting. I watched the reaction when they said, you know, Daredevil, Born Again, it'll be an 18-episode series. And there was a lot of cheering. And I wondered how many people were cheering because it was just more Daredevil and a lot of people really loved the series, and how many was it because they recognized that particular name?
It's tough to say. I mean, it's now, I hate to show my age, but it's been a little while since that was new. I mean, it is out in trade paperback, so it's not like a hidden story, but I have a suspicion more, this is just a hunch, more of the cheering was just for Daredevil and 18 episodes. And I'm sure Born Again resonated with people, but not to the same, you're talking about San Diego Comic-Con Hall H, which is like packed 6,000 people in a room, and they're maybe like Marvel, but they're not like dedicated Daredevil catalogers who are going to probably know that title.
Well, and I think too, like, I mean, because I definitely, like I said before, I hadn't read the Born Again comic until just now, like the past week or so. So I was definitely more excited just to hear that we were getting more Daredevil and that it's going to be the same actor, Charlie Cox, because I freaking love him. Like I was first introduced to that actor from in Stardust when he was cute little Tristan, and and so when I heard that like he was playing Daredevil, I was like, okay, interesting. And like I just immediately like fell in love with his like version of the character. And so to get more of him, okay, quick story time. Spider-Man, No Way Home. You've all seen it, right? Everyone's seen it. Okay, just making sure.
I think everyone.
Spoilers.
Everyone has seen it, right?
Has
Okay.
Spider-Man in it.
So everybody was super, super excited for the Spider-Man cameos. Of course, I was too. I loved it. I was so excited I stopped breathing when Charlie Cox showed up in the movie. I was like crying. I was just so happy, and he was in it for like what, 2 seconds? Like
Yeah, his cameo was so good though.
so
Catching the brick when it was thrown through the window. What kind of lawyer did you say you were? A really good one.
So,
Ugh,
so I
golden.
have a question for you, Marley and Jake.
Yeah.
Like, so Blake and I, old grizzled Daredevil veterans. What at what point did you watch the series? Like, did you watch it when it was brand new? And at what point did you fall in love with it? And also, I feel very sad I didn't wear a Daredevil t-shirt. I just realized that I'm like wearing some go to work shirt. So I might.
It's a nice shirt. You look really nice, Larry.
I might hop off camera and listen and come right back. Unless
if
that's
you need
super
to.
rude. Okay, I'll be right back.
If you need
Well,
to.
I knew Daredevil from when I was a kid and reading the comics and being a comic book fan and being a Frank Miller fan from some of the other work that he'd done. I had sought out some of the stuff that he had written, and Born Again was definitely one of those books that I wanted to track down and read. When the series came out, I don't work for the same company anymore, so I can say this. I called in sick to my boss that day and watched the whole first season and just stayed home from work and watched that. And it was some of the most powerful storytelling I'd ever seen on a TV series like that. And so for me, that's what bought me in 100% with Charlie Cox and the Netflix series. So
Yeah, I can't remember if I started watching it the first season on Netflix when it like very first came out. It might have, I wonder if season 2 had been out yet. Honestly, I can't remember, but I definitely like came into it like early on, and I remember being excited for when the next seasons came out, especially like season 3. So I just really like fell in love with it because I didn't really know much about Daredevil and his story before watching the Netflix series. I did know about Daredevil from the Ben Affleck movie, unfortunately. Should we not talk about that? Should I not have mentioned that?
No, we should talk about it.
I'm good to talk
don't
about
know.
it. I think it certainly needs, talk about the multiverse. There was
Yeah.
that was a multiverse version of Daredevil where
Yeah, for sure. But yeah,
you don't need that crossover to show up though in a
No.
later Daredevil episode or anything.
No, but I just really loved the Netflix series because again, like it was an actor that I had known from a previous role that I really liked, and just kind of seeing this part of Marvel, because even though it wasn't officially like MCU, but just seeing this part of Marvel that was a little more dark and gritty and violent. Like it was kind of interesting to see that side and to be able to kind of get into like the down and dirty of these heroes. Because meanwhile we have fun and joyful Guardians of the Galaxy, and here's Thor, and like of course I love those, but like some of them it just kind of seemed a little more lighthearted. So to get this kind of darker side, and then even with the other series, like Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and all of those, like it was just kind of for me, it was kind of refreshing to see this side. And I was so sad, so sad when they canceled it after season 3. It was a shame.
When I was a kid, my parents used to buy me these action figures at the store. That I think it was the Secret Wars series of action figures. And there was a Daredevil that they had got me because my favorite color was red. And I was a kid. Like the only thing I knew about Daredevil was I love red, and there's not a lot more red than Daredevil. And so And then learning that he was like, my dad read me the back of the card or whatever, and that he was blind. I was like, he can do all this stuff and he's blind. Like, I thought that was really cool. So that was something that I've always loved, the look and the kind of the aspects of Daredevil, even from a pretty young age. Obviously not the darkness part. They didn't let me read Frank Miller books when I was, just a little one. So.
Well, I wasn't subscribed to Netflix at the time they announced the Daredevil series, so I signed up for Netflix just for the Daredevil series. So
Wow.
Perfect.
I was that excited for it.
Netflix noticed, like, there was a lot of people that actually watched that Daredevil season 1. It was very successful at the time. I think even they said it was the most watched. They guard those things pretty well, but it was the most watched Netflix series at that point.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
It was a home run out of the gate.
Yeah.
I know. And I loved, like, in season 2 when they introduced Punisher and John Bernthal's Frank Castle. It was kind of funny because, like, at the time when I was watching that series, I was also, for the first time ever, watching Walking Dead. I was a little late to the Walking Dead train, and it took me the longest time to realize that John Bernthal was in both series. I felt so dumb after I realized that. I was like, wait a second. It's the same person.
And Marley, speaking of Spider-Man villains, the Punisher started out like the Kingpin as a Spider-Man villain.
Oh.
And Miller brought him over into the Daredevil universe too.
Another solid show.
Miller really transformed the same everything we said about Kingpin. He really transformed the Punisher into, like, this guy with a gun into, like, oh wow, he's massively cool, and he has really interesting philosophical differences about violence than how he's opposed to Daredevil, and maybe he'll kill that jaywalker, and just that kind of. He just made him so much more dynamic, and for my money, that's part of a really good run of Frank Miller writing, and some great covers. Some of the really great Daredevil comic covers feature Punisher. I'm not going to walk off camera again, but I have a really super cool Daredevil Punisher statue. Maybe I should walk off. It's about this tall.
I like your Elektra.
Oh, I couldn't find my super cool Daredevil shirt, but I have this Elektra shirt.
Yeah, she's cool too.
If we talk about Elektra, I'll have a lot
of Elektra was created during the Frank Miller run on Daredevil too, and what an important character that for the Marvel universe and hopefully now the Marvel cinematic universe, that he brought this character in. She was someone from Daredevil's past when he kind of retconned some things about Daredevil's origin, and then she got so popular that she did go on to have her own series after she was resurrected.
Which happens in the comics a lot.
Funny thing, in fact, people who haven't read it, so Marley and Jake, there is I think it's called Elektra Lives Again, and it's in a trade paperback. So Frank Miller wrote Elektra, and are spoilers okay? It's really old.
Especially where it's like 30, 40 years old. Like,
I was going to say, we're talking about stuff from the 80s, Larry.
You know that Darth Vader is Luke. Anyway.
Wait, what?
So a little me, little teenage me. Yeah, I was a teenager. Was reading live those Daredevil comics as they came out that introduced Elektra and did all those things. And in one of the issues, 181, because you remember things when you're a teenager, so that probably he killed her. And
Bullseye did.
What's that, Blake?
Didn't Bullseye kill?
Well, yeah, but I mean, Frank Miller is Bullseye.
Oh, Frank Miller, yeah. Frank's
ultimately responsible. He's the one that actually killed her.
Yeah. So Bullseye killed her, and in amazing fashion. And that particular issue, like, it was impossible to find. I couldn't find it anywhere, and so it just sold out, like, everywhere. So poor me was like, oh, I didn't quite get what was going on in the greater comic world, how hot it was. I was just reading good stories every month from the, this like 7-Eleven or something. And I ended up finding it in St. George. I was on a little road trip 6 hours south of where I live. And I found it at a grocery store, and I was reading it in the grocery store, and I cried. Like, she died, and I cried. It was so like horrible.
Aw.
It was, I mean, it's really well written death too. It's beautiful. Like, she and Daredevil are enemies, and then, oh, I'm dying, and now at the last moments of my life, I'm gonna go to Matt Murdock. So it's pretty touching. So there I was crying.
Oh.
And she was so popular, like Blake said, like Elektra was super popular, and there was no way that Marvel was going to let her stay dead, which is, if I was king of the world and I could change one thing in comics, it would be like death is permanent. So it matters, because it's silly. But Frank Miller wrote Elektra Lives Again because he's like, well, clearly they're going to bring her back. So I'm going to do it on my terms and my way. And it's, as resurrection stories go, it's top shelf. It's
a beautiful miniseries. It's drawn by Bill Skinvecki. How do you?
Sienkiewicz is his name.
Sienkiewicz. Oh my goodness! It's there's so much frameable artwork in that miniseries.
Yeah.
Larry, that issue 181. I remember how violent Elektra's death was for that time.
Yeah.
And I remember after that there was a lot of back and forth. There was even I think the national news even caught wave of the controversy that was surrounding the violent act of her death at the time. And in another way, Frank Miller, by upping the violence level on his run in Daredevil, he changed comics in another way.
He really was pushing boundaries. And you say that, and I can't describe it very well because whatever, but I can see them in my mind's eye, that image of Bullseye's sigh right through Elektra's chest and poking out the back, taking the material. Like, I can see it, and I think it was
not even in the X-Men with Wolverine's claws did anything depicted that violent and mainstream superhero comic books up to that point.
You really felt it. And the whole, at least me at the time, I was like, oh, they're not really going to kill her. And that's not really good. And then there it was.
Wow.
It was impactful.
So then, speaking of Elektra's resurrection, didn't we kind of sort of see that in the TV series? Because, like, who was it? The Red Hand who got her?
Yeah.
And put her in that, like, chamber kind of thing. And so we kind of saw, like, that they were, like, preserving her. So I don't know. I wonder if we're going to see her in the Born Again series.
I don't know about the Born Again series, but I'm fully anticipating her to come back at some point in the MCU.
Yeah.
Yep. She is super popular. And so there's two ways to look at this. Yes, they kind of covered that, Marley. I don't think you can go there again, because they kind of did already. And they did not do a bad job, and I'm not complaining about it, but they did burn that opportunity to do it maybe better. Like the full on more kind of version. They kind of let it be a small thing, and it could have been a magnificent big thing, which is okay. Like, I'm not complaining. Like the many, many, many hours of the Daredevil TV series, and now to have 18 more episodes, I'm not complaining about any of that.
Right.
It's better than
didn't that so the Defenders season, did you guys I think I like blocked that from my memory, because, like, I cannot remember, like, the plot that happened in that. Was she in that? Was Elektra in that, or no? Yes?
I think.
Was she? I'm, like, trying to remember. All I know is that I associate it. I actually said that it was more of an Iron Fist season 2 than it was a Defenders.
Well, can I throw out some strong opinions, hosts?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah, please. This is safe space for all opinions. Strong.
Okay. Loved the Daredevil series. Loved Jessica Jones. Power Man was fine. Maybe a tiny bit boring, but it was solid. And I watched it, and I loathed Iron Fist. I think it's terrible.
Oh, it's terrible.
And then I don't loathe the Avengers, but I did, to me, feel like it bled right into the Avengers, and all the things that were wrong was kind of they ended up being kind of a bad mark against the Defenders as well. So it was unfortunate, not great. And then it actually, when the cancellation came, it sort of was like, well, you kind of in my opinion, they mangled that. So it sort of was the natural course of events, even though Daredevil on its own had a lot more to say, and Jessica Jones as well. But
that's one that I need to go back, and I never finished Jessica Jones just because I had a harder time with it. Even though I watched more Iron Fist than I did Jessica Jones, and I kind of regret that.
It's hard material, honestly. And as much
It's an easy show to watch.
No, as much as people are saying the violence in Daredevil maybe isn't perfect for Disney Plus, it's really, for me at least, it's Jessica Jones. The content there is like, that is pretty heavy stuff. I wouldn't blame you for not watching it, but it's pretty well done.
Yeah.
So I just love David Tennant as the villain in season 1.
That's what I hear.
I agree.
He's amazing. Yeah. He's a good actor, and he can play almost any role. But it's hard to see him as not the Purple Man after you watch.
No, it's almost his best thing that he's done for me.
Yeah,
I was just so good.
So if you like him as Doctor Who, don't watch Jessica Jones. It may ruin Doctor Who for you.
Oh goodness.
And Marley, to answer your question, Elektra was in the Defender series.
Okay, like I said, I saw it one time when it first came out because I was excited. I was excited to see this team up, even though like Iron Fist wasn't super great. I never watched Luke Cage. Oopsies. And I was like, yeah, this sounds great. And then I watched it and I was like, that was okay. And then it was just hard to go back and watch some of the other series, and it just made me that much more excited for Daredevil season 3 when it came out. Because I'm like, yes, what I already know and love.
Like Blake, to me, again, not a criticism, but Blake and I agree on this. The old Defenders with Doctor Strange and Hulk and Valkyrie and Hellcat and the Black Knight, like that was cool comics. And then Daredevil shows up once or twice a year. Like that was a good read.
The Submariner would show up on occasion. And they had Nighthawk too, which was kind of Marvel's answer. One of Marvel's answers to Batman. He was a cool character too. So
it was like the weird Avengers or the quirky Avengers kind of. I really liked that comic.
Yeah. The not like the Avengers are like the jocks at school, the athletes, and then the Defenders are like the cool kids who aren't the jocks, you know.
They were the goth kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones playing Dungeons and Dragons on their lunch break.
Oh my goodness.
So cool
and really no one else can deal with the Hulk except Doctor Strange in the Marvel Universe. So that actually works too.
Yeah. So with this, it's interesting because we've talked about Frank Miller and how big an influence he was on the Daredevil character and his run on Daredevil. Why this particular story do you think Marvel? I mean, I don't think it's an accident that they picked Born Again as the name of their new Daredevil 18-episode season that's coming. Why this particular story from all of the Frank Miller stories that they could do?
I mean, there is a chance, by the way. I think we probably don't want this to be true, but there's a chance that Marvel just said, hey, Born Again's really good branding Disney said Born Again's really good branding to put on Disney Plus. And what if it has nothing to do with this?
Yeah.
Run. But it's Kingpin and Daredevil. So probably.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's smart branding. It's really smart branding. Like back in the 20th century, Frank Miller said, in the far future when Disney Plus has a Daredevil series, I better call this Born Again so they can use it. I mean, it's good job.
I'm sure that was his thinking. Absolutely. That was totally
and Jake, I think another part of it may be the fact that the people that were teenagers like me and Larry at the time that this series came out, these guys were reading Daredevil. They're now producers. They're now directors. They're now decision makers for companies like Disney and Marvel Cinematic Universe. Who knows? It could have been one of Kevin Feige's favorite series that he read growing up. So I think that may have a lot to do with it too. Here oh, we have the Daredevil character from Netflix now. What do you want to do? Oh, let's do Born Again. That was my favorite series when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Well, and like for me, after reading the Born Again series, I think plot wise, it kind of makes sense that this is where the Daredevil story could go. And like, sure, there's some characters in the Born Again series that are dead in the TV series, like for example, Ben Urich, the reporter.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see like if they're going to do something similar, but bring in someone else and kind of like incorporate someone else, or even the whole plot point. And I feel like, again, like this shouldn't be a spoiler, but maybe I should still do a spoiler alert, even though it happens in like what the first literal like page of the comic. And that is when Karen Page sells the secret that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. Also, she can get a drug fix. And it'd be interesting to see if we're going to have in the new TV series, if Karen Page is going to go down that dark route, which I feel like we kind of saw a little bit of dark elements with her, a little bit of teases here and there from the TV series. And you know, they kind of made hints about her past being rough and all of that. So like maybe we'll see her go down this route, or maybe they'll bring in somebody totally different that is going to sell the secret. Who knows, but I could kind of see that maybe being the plot point.
Well, and there's the character of Glory, the girl from Scotland.
I had
Ireland.
to look her up.
She was a girlfriend of Matt's. There was a girl named Heather who was a girlfriend of Matt's who died. And then he had a long relationship with Karen before she left New York to go to Hollywood to try and be an actress. And you have that whole subplot with Foggy hooking up with Matt's ex-girlfriend while he's basically crazy living on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about adapting this, and one thought that came to me is like, well, it's kind of cold of Foggy, sucks for Matt, my longtime friend and partner. I know he's lost his career. I know he's lost his home. He keeps calling us with these crazy phone calls. But hey, I'm things are great between me and his ex-girlfriend, and I could almost see, with the series, maybe if there is going to be a Glory character, she and Foggy teaming up to hit the streets and maybe try to find Matt. Matt's missing. Let's, give them something to do, because they really don't do much other than fall in love and have the good life. As a contrast to what's happened to Matt's life in the meantime.
Yeah, they keep, every time they cut to the Foggy story, I'm like, okay, let's get through these panels to the like actual story that's happening. But reading this again in preparation for tonight, I really feel like there's a lot that could play out really well in an 18-part series, and a lot of it, like with the TV series that they've done on Disney Plus. They have a few big moments, right, where they're in the costume and there's the explosions and everything else. But like when you look at WandaVision, most of that series is not her as Scarlet Witch until toward the very end. And similar with Miss Marvel that just wrapped up. And I thought about that. This is a great story for that reason, because it's not toward the end of the story before he's putting the Daredevil costume back on. Most of it is him being down at the bottom of his luck as Matt Murdock and trying to fight back and that, guys. And so I thought that would probably work really well for a Disney Plus series.
He's wearing his down jacket, which is very 80s.
Yes. Which I hope they stay true to the comic, and he's got the big puffy down jacket the whole time.
Are you listening, Disney? We need that down jacket, Disney.
We need Charlie Cox in that down jacket, please.
Marley, I have a question as the sole female here.
Sure.
We just listed like the many romantic we didn't even scratch the surface actually of the many romantic partners of Matthew Murdock and Daredevil. Like, and by the way, I was really always hoping that Daredevil would make his entry into the Marvel universe so that he could meet Black Widow and they could be like, hey, it's been a while since we dated. Like, I really wanted that moment, but never came to pass, which is too bad. Yeah. Anyhow, is there something really appealing about Charlie Cox, like in a kind of a and Daredevil too, in a kind of a romantic way? Like, because women really seem to like Daredevil. It's true. It really is true. Both in the comic and in the real world. Like,
yeah,
a character that resonates with females.
Well, it definitely helps that Charlie Cox is. I mean, he's a good-looking guy. He's cute. He's handsome. Whatever you want to call it. So like, it helps that physically he's appealing, but also just like, I guess, like his character, where he kind of. I mean, you even see it a little bit in the Netflix TV series kind of early on, where he's kind of like, oh, poor me, I'm just a blind guy, and the girls are all like, oh, let me help you, that kind of trope.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a bit of that, but then you find that he's actually like, he's got a troubled past, and oh, his dad died tragically, and like all these sad things. And so I think like generally, women are kind of like drawn to, oh, poor you, let me take care of you kind of thing. And so like, I think that's kind of part of it, but also he just, like I've said many times already on this episode, there's just something about Charlie Cox and him playing this character. Like he's just one of those like people that just needs to be protected and loved. He just needs some love. That guy needs to, he just needs to catch a break, for goodness sakes. I'm actually glad though that you mentioned Black Widow, because I had no idea that was like a thing until I read the Guardian Devil series, because she's in it.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like his love interest in it. And I'm like, but also kind of not. Like, I think she attacks him, if I remember right. But there's that whole.
That could still be a love interest.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
probably it attacks him if she's a love interest in the Daredevil world.
That's true. Elektra does that quite often too. But yes, I thought that was a really fun thing to see, like somebody else that I already am, a character that I'm already familiar with, showing up with another character that I'm familiar with. So I just love the crossovers, and I just think it's a lot of fun.
Once upon a time, I'm not old enough to remember this, but I collected every back issue because that's what I did as a kid. Like, I got everything I could get my hands on. But the title was called Daredevil and Black Widow. They shared the Daredevil title was called that, and it was their comic, not his comic. And they moved to San Francisco together and lived there for a while.
Lovely.
Larry, that was in the 70s, wasn't it? Around the same time you had Captain America and the Falcon was the Captain America series.
I mean, probably. I read all that so much later that I don't really know. But like I loved as a kid. I could sit down and read like 100 consecutive issues of Daredevil in the summertime when I wasn't in school. So that's what I did.
That's awesome.
Love it.
So when I read through this, there's one character that stood out to me, and I'm interested to see if he makes it into the series and how they handle it, because the character was probably frightening back then, but is downright terrifying today, and that's Nuke.
Oh, I was thinking that's where you were going.
And Nuke has already been introduced in the Netflix stuff, and
has he?
Jessica Jones season 1, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, see, I need to go. You guys, I need to go and watch Jessica Jones. So I need to do it.
It's almost like Netflix was, not only with the Daredevil series, but it's almost like Netflix was leading the whole content they were creating toward this Born Again adaptation by also having Nuke around early on.
Yeah, I agree, Blake, totally. It was an early tell that like this is the same universe, and it's the same universe, even though we can't put it on TV. The Avengers, right, are definitely kind of in the backdrop. And if you've read Born Again, like, oh, hey, the Avengers show up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a surprise. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah,
Captain America, what?
Yeah, Captain America becomes part of the story there for a
Yeah.
little bit. Thor shows up. He causes the thunderstorm to help put out the fire. Iron Man shows up. I was wondering, maybe Sam Wilson will show up. Maybe War Machine will show up since Tony Stark can't, and maybe Thor will show up, or maybe one of the other Avengers will show up.
It
during the
would
new
be a super sort of validating way to use Captain America, I think, in particular, to have Sam Wilson be there to deal with Nuke. When I thought about how Disney Plus might tackle it, I was like, that's if they, because he's not too big for those. He clearly has a Disney series, so it would be a natural thing to have him there, and the story lends itself. You can't see this is my I can't. It's not going to work. Anyway, this big poster I have of Daredevil in my entryway of my house, Captain America's on there.
Oh,
big stained glass window. It's by the way, which Mornigan is very strong on religious themes.
Yeah, it is.
So it'll be fascinating to see if those are incorporated, because they're a little bit subtle. But anyway,
again, the Daredevil Netflix series got into the religious themes, and they also touched on this idea of maybe Matt's mother was still alive. Maybe she was a nun.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit more on the nose. In the Born Again series, when he asks the nun, "Are you my mother?" and she says, "Of course not." And then you have the thought caption that says, "Oh, she just lied." So
you could hear her heartbeat. Knew that she was lying.
I think all these things that you're mentioning, or that we're mentioning, in some ways, it makes the Born Again run challenging, I think, for Disney, because they have used a little bit of the downfall of Matt Murdock. They have used nuns like helping him and nursing him back to health and rehabbing him mentally and emotionally. Nuke is out there. So some of and more elements, some of these things have been not used the same way. Or, well, Jake, you said Daredevil out of costume, right? That's definitely happened a lot in the Netflix version. And so,
and what happened to Melvin Potter too? Did he die in the TV series? I can't remember, or was he just?
I don't think he did.
I don't think so.
I had no idea that he in the comics was like a superhero or villain.
He's a villain. Yeah, he's a long-time Daredevil villain.
Yeah, Gladiator. Yeah, see, I had no idea. So, like, for me, reading the Born Again comic and finding Melvin in there and how he, like, makes the costumes and stuff, I was like, hey, I know who this is.
When I watch that Netflix series, and I'll bet Blake is the same way, every time Melvin's on screen, I'm like, that's Melvin. That's like, it was just such a like a small thing, but it was such a like important kind of that's Daredevil. That they got that right. Like things like that made it work for me.
Yeah. Well, it will be interesting to see. Do you think it will be full on TVMA like the Netflix series, or do you think Disney holds back a little bit?
I think it'll be TVMA.
I hope so.
TVMA for the same reasons the Netflix series is. I mean, they didn't get too heavy on the sexual content or nudity, or you didn't get a lot of F-bombs, but the dark tone, the violence, some of the hard things to watch. I think that those should be there.
I think, and I agree, I think when you're Disney Plus and you put Jessica Jones on there, which is like strong themes of like consent are taken away and even sexual, like rape, really. If you're willing to go there and put that on your network, you're going to be you're willing to do it.
I think with the filtering options that parents have, I don't think they're going to hold back as far as the adaptation.
It'll be really fascinating to me. Like, one of the things I'll be waiting for is in this 18-hour-long episode, or we don't know their hour, but in these 18 episodes, will they throw in one of those 3-minute fight scenes with no cuts that that Daredevil became so famous for? Will Disney go to that level of like brawling? And by the way, those are pretty great TV making.
Yeah,
pretty stunning.
I hope that they do. I hope that it feels like the Netflix series and that it's a continuation of the Netflix series and not. And I only ask that because we saw Kingpin make an appearance in the Hawkeye series, right? And it just didn't. It felt like Kingpin light compared to what we had seen,
In
even
his
from the
Hawaiian shirt.
yeah, yeah,
He's a little super powered, it felt like, too.
yeah,
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 I think they'll have more time to show us maybe more of a Netflix version of Kingpin because he's going to be more part of the Echo series. And I don't know, did everyone see the picture from the Echo series where it shows Daredevil in his yellow costume?
Oh, wait, yes.
Yeah, that.
yes. And he's showing up in She-Hulk in his yellow costume as well.
Oh, that's right, She-Hulk. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. But they've also announced that Daredevil is going to be part of the Echo series too. So I think they between She-Hulk and Echo they have some time to maybe start building up for the Born Again series.
I like kind of the direction that they're going with this too, because they're by bringing Daredevil back and um, they've got someone, that main character, who can kind of anchor the down to earth superheroes that I like. You know, there's the Avengers that handle all the big stuff, and Spider-Man is usually more down to earth, but they've got him now part of the Avengers, and so he's a lot more involved in that kind of stuff.
No, well, he's kind of more down to earth now. That's one thing I really liked about No Way Home.
That's true.
Is
They've reset
because
that a little bit.
you know everyone knows who Spider-Man still is, but he's starting over as Peter Parker, and he's more like Peter Parker in the comic books.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
He's
That's a
pretty
good
powerful, though. Like, he's strong and does stuff.
Yeah.
but he doesn't have the Stark tech anymore in his.
No, that's true.
costumes.
That's right. That's
Oh,
very
yeah.
So that's
Now
one
he's got a shiny
disadvantage
blue
to that
costume.
now.
He's
It
got that
is.
weird shiny blue costume now. I don't know what I think about it yet.
It is interesting that they used the kind of the plot point of like, oh, everyone knows who Peter Parker is, and so maybe it'll be interesting if they tried. Everyone knows who Matt Murdock is. How do they make it not feel like a retread, right? Even though in the writing world, it happened to Daredevil way before Peter Parker, but
I think it'll be interesting though, because in Born Again, Kingpin knows who Matt Murdock is and that he's Daredevil, but he doesn't necessarily share that with his whole organization. He just destroys Matt Murdock's life, and even his lieutenants and everybody keeps commenting on, what do you have against this Matt Murdock guy? Like, what, like, this vendetta is going to ruin our organization, and he doesn't necessarily share that it's Daredevil, and so it would be an interesting take, because it wouldn't be everybody now knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. It would be, if they do it right, just Kingpin that knows.
no,
Wasn't that later on during the Brubaker run on
That
Daredevil?
was 100% right. I forgot, and I mixed those up because eventually Daredevil gets outed as Matt, but you're right, not part of the Born Again. So thank goodness.
Now you can sleep better.
Well, truly, like that Daredevil run where his identity was revealed was good, but after that, it limited so much of what the character could do that it really, to me, it put a handcuff on future writers. Like, it really bogged the series down.
Which is why Marvel went back to giving Peter Parker a secret identity after he was outed during the Civil War.
After he outed himself, because he took the advice of Tony Stark.
Yeah, but then something happened down the road that not everyone knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So
he should have listened to Cap. Cap told him not to share it.
I always listen to Captain America.
Yeah, you always listen to Cap. It's just a good rule of thumb.
When I was in detention watching those videos with Cap,
oh my goodness. Those are the best.
Well, I think it's exciting that they've announced it, and I agree. I think with the filtering that they've got on there now, I think we can expect this to be very similar to what we've seen from Daredevil in the past. And I think Disney knows, well, Kevin Feige knows not to mess with a good thing, I hope, and they don't try to mess it up too bad, but I think it'll be good. I'm excited for it all the way around. So
Yeah, Okay, I'll agree with that. Everything you said, I agree with. One thing I really think Daredevil does well, the character, right, is he's really good for like meeting other characters. He's good in that
Yeah.
whole story we talked about. He's good with the Punisher. He's probably good with She-Hulk, and that's an interesting dynamic. If I was king of the world, and Captain America too, like all those things kind of work. I need Daredevil to hang out with Wolverine for an episode. That's if I were king, that's what would happen.
I wouldn't be opposed to Daredevil hanging out with Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman Wolverine.
I don't care at this point.
Just a good version would be okay. But sure, Hugh Jackman would be good. Did you guys see the Logan movie? That kind of excellent. In that mythology, in the comic book world, Daredevil is still alive. He's still present, one of the last surviving heroes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So when I watched that movie, I just, in my head, I'm like, yeah, Daredevil's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and
of course he is.
I'm just desperate. I would love to see Wolverine and Daredevil just because I'm desperate to get more mutants in the MCU.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
We finally got one. I want more now.
Well, the first mutant is going to be the Submariner. You've seen the Wakanda Forever preview trailer that came from San Diego Comic-Con. They only show him from the back a couple times, but it's clearly.
Well, have you seen the end of Miss Marvel?
I have not gotten to the end of Miss Marvel yet.
Oh,
all right.
Okay. No spoilers there. No spoilers there.
I'm not saying nothing else then.
We have homework to do, is what you're saying.
We do. I do. I think I'm 2 episodes away from finishing.
Yeah, I'm not at the end either.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed Miss Marvel.
It was actually pretty good. Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. Yeah. Yeah. The casting was really good, and I felt like that the actress portraying Ms. Marvel, I can't remember her
Kamala.
Yeah, and I think she hits the comic book character on it's a pretty good presentation of the comic book character.
Yeah, I like it. I like to watch it with my girls and be like, see, this is who you need to try to look up to, not because she's just so great. I think in every way, and so
very wholesome.
Anyway, well, thank you, Blake and Larry. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us to talk about Daredevil. I know we had to really twist your arms to get you here to talk about Daredevil.
It still hurts a little, but it was fun coming on.
I mean, only because I like you, Jake. That's the only reason you can drag me to talk about Daredevil. I just want to one more thing. If I were king, I'm not a huge fan of Deborah Ann Woll until the Daredevil series, and I thought she was amazing.
She's great.
Mm-hmm.
And they must have Karen Page there, and they must have the real downfall of Karen Page. I think it adds so much more like power to the entire story arc if she really sunk to the depths, and Matt stuck with her despite everything, and they kind of did their thing together. And I want him to flip burgers for part of an episode. You know?
Oh my gosh,
I love that when he's flipping and like they're all perfect.
I've never tasted a burger this good.
Yeah.
Right. If I can have those things, they can do whatever else they want in the 18 episodes, and Captain America for a minute.
Yeah. I would love to see Captain America, and I would love to see it be Sam Wilson Captain America.
Oh,
yeah. It'd be amazing.
The table is set, man. Like, how can they not do that? It's right there.
It'll be disappointing if they don't. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Age of Geek Media. You can find us everywhere on social media at Age of Geek Media. If you have feedback for us, you can send that to feedback@ageofgeek.com. See, it's new, so we're still getting used to it. And you can also check out our website, ageofgeek.com. And then check out our other podcasts, Cutscenes and Cupcakes with Marley and Steph and Lindsay, and Movies That Make Us with me and Tracy and Val, and Multiplane Podcast with Val and Tyler. So I think that's everything. Whew, that's a lot.
It is a lot. It's a big group.
And go to Fan X and see Blake and see
we'll all
and
be
see
at
us. Yeah, we'll all be there.
But
You are
also,
all on some great panels. I'm so excited.
I'm excited.
we are always excited, and I'm glad to hear that, Blake, because we're always excited to do the
Yay!
panels no matter what. But there was a good slate this year to choose from and volunteer for, so that was
Mhm.
exciting. So if you've never been to FanX, you need to go because it's amazing and awesome, and they put on a great show every year. So, but thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time on Age of Geek.
Thanks.